Hi, everybody. Welcome back for another episode of the Awaken Way podcast, where we're talking about all things greater reality. My guest today is right up my alley. She does similar work to that which I do, but in her own beautiful way, multiple books. I met her at a recent conference and she had exactly what I needed. We'll talk about that. So why don't I just bring her on? My guest is Lisa Campion. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm so delighted to be here and to see you again. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. You are a psychic, an intuitive, of course, that goes hand in hand, an author, a Reiki master and teacher, or is that Reiki master teacher? I'm not sure which, but um, it's interesting on your website, lisacampion.com. You don't put medium, yet you bring people through. So how do you
Mhm.
describe yourself?
I always say I'm not a medium, but mediumship happens. So I it's sort of not my specialty, although I love to do it. I always have done it. I was one of those I see dead people kids, so I've been seeing like ghosts and spirits since I was really little. But I feel my talent as a psychic is really in soul reading, and that's looking at the level of the soul of the person that I'm reading. And that means like who we were before we got here, what's amazing about us, what our highest spiritual purpose is, what maybe is blocking that, or what obstacles are in our way for us fulfilling our purpose, what our past lives have been, what our soulmates and our connection with our soulmates are, and of course our relationship with our loved ones who have crossed over. But mostly I'm looking at sort of the arc and narrative of our soul's evolution when I'm reading for people. And like I said, mediumship happens sometimes along the way, but it's not really the focus of what I do.
Well, I just love this because the way you just framed that is totally outside the box that I had put you in. I mean, slightly put box, based on the books that I've read of yours already. And I love that because I can just feel everybody's energy as they hear that, like, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I want. Everybody wants to know what's my purpose, right? It's like the number one
Mhm.
question you get
It
from
is,
people.
for sure.
But I would like to go back because we'll get to that for sure and talk about this I see dead people thing, because I was reading one of your recent books, your most recent one, the
Mhm.
psychic. What is the title?
Awakening your psychic abilities.
That's it. I was reading it last night, Awakening Your Psychic Abilities. And you told this story about walking into your office and there's a man sitting in the chair, full, solid, appears absolutely real. And you wrote that he just winked at you and then dissolved because he was waiting to come through in the reading you were about to do.
Yes.
I mean, that's the kind of thing I keep asking my guides for because I have yet to have that kind of solid experience. And I think they think I'd be totally freaked out and scared.
Mhm.
How has
Mm.
that been for you? What was it like as a child?
It was scary, and it was so scary that this is a funny story I don't really talk about that much, but it's a great answer to your question. It's so scary that it happened to me a lot when I was a child and hardly ever happens anymore. And the one time I was probably like 5 years old, it happened, and I just really got down on my knees and prayed and prayed and prayed that I didn't wanna see that anymore, you know? I didn't
Yeah.
wanna see it, and so the next morning, I woke up and I needed glasses.
And you
And
hadn't needed them until that point?
no, I hadn't needed them until that point. And so I've been wearing glasses ever since. I'm like, I have the worst eyesight ever, like, so bad. And I
Um,
I don't know, I just really meant it when I said I don't wanna see it. And I still feel them, like, I see them in my mind's eye, I
sure.
see them, you know, and I feel them and sense them and hear them and all that, but I don't see them physically like I used to, except sometimes when I'm very relaxed and not thinking about it, but I've had like a full on conversation with somebody in a cemetery that truly thought was there until my friend was like, what are you doing, Lisa? Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, the nice man in the hat who's putting flowers on his wife's grave. She's like, there's nobody there, you know? So occasionally it does happen to me. And it's still, I see sometimes people standing on the side of the road. I don't know why they stand on the side of the highway or the side of the road, but so often that's where I see them. And,
Wow.
and I'll be like, to my kids, I'm like, "Did you see that person?" And they'll be like, "No, mom, stop, you're freaking me out. Like, stop that." So it happens to me and I still don't really like it. So I try really hard for that not to happen. It's quite disconcerting, honestly.
I can imagine, but it's funny because I always thought that's the proof I needed. And I've gotten to the point through multiple breakthroughs along the way, and I share this with everybody because we are part of a process of evolution
Mhm.
that I now so completely trust the spirit world. I don't need to see them. So maybe it will happen now. But my
Yeah.
guide said to me last week, 2 weeks ago, you think seeing is believing, but knowing is the truest form of seeing. And
Yeah.
you and I both know that death is not the end, the greater reality is real.
Mhm.
So if you don't focus on mediumship, even though you sense them, see them, hear them, how did you discover that knowing the soul's path of others was your path?
Well, it's really been my whole entire life. So I had a twin brother that died in utero, you know, and he died at about 14 weeks along. And it's actually my first memory of his passing. And I was so it's such an odd place to be to know death before I knew life,
Huh.
you know. And when I was born, I my first very, very first memories are seeing spirits. So I remember have this memory of like lying in my crib and seeing all these like beings of light standing around my crib and they're glowing and smiling and blowing me kisses and it's so beautiful. And then my mom walks in opens the door, walks into the room and they all disappear.
Oh,
And that's my very first memory. And I had my invisible friend when I was little who was my dead brother William. And when I was like 4, my mom said, "Who are you talking to, honey?" And I said, "Oh, my dead brother William." She was
oh,
holding this like glass of iced tea and she dropped it and it
oh,
smashed and she like ran screaming out of the like room and didn't talk about it ever again really, but later on she said yeah, she'd had the doctors had, you know, suspected that she'd had a miscarriage and were surprised that she was still pregnant, right? So, um, that's really so I feel like that is almost like my purpose for being. And when I was little, like I'm sure that happened to me to give me the gift that I have, so that I came in with that purpose. It sort of never had not had it, you know.
get back to soul's purpose, but I'm just so intrigued. What is your memory of that your brother's miscarriage at it's your mother's miscarriage, your brother's death at 14 weeks?
It was um it was very, very, very intense and hard to put words into, but it just sort of felt like an opening happened, like a portal happened. And I think that women have that portal in their wombs anyway because that's how the souls come in and out.
Mhm.
And I felt like that portal opened and he left. Sort of got sucked into it. And it didn't feel it didn't feel wrong. It was quite beautiful in a way. Like it didn't feel wrong or bad that it was happening. And I think it, also maintained because you know how twinsies are connected. Twinses are like mentally connected. And so that connection stayed for me, even though he was on the other side. So I
Wow.
never felt like he wasn't there.
Hmm.
He was just there in a different way. But I remember also being extremely sad and feeling almost like, oh, oh shoot, I'm gonna have to do this alone. Like I'm gonna have to, and I was like, that was like, um, I was quite sad about that. Um,
But
you
that's
know,
what's fascinating because see, the one thing that doesn't change about us, that was in my daily message today for the Awaken Way app, was that we are this shared awareness with everybody. And
yes,
you had that, and that's never gone away. You
it's
just
never
know
gone
that
away.
you're always
Yeah,
connected.
that's right.
Wow.
That's right. So, and then of course I grew up in a very haunted house and just outside of Boston in
Of
this
course.
big old mama Victorian house, that like this house could have like auditioned for the haunted house in a movie. It was like, that. And
Oh,
Murphy's Law put the psychic child in the most haunted room and that's how that went. So I would wake up in the middle of the night and that I called them the gray people when I was little, that the gray people were all around all around me. And I knew that it was so funny. I knew that if I listened to them, they would feel better, that they just wanted to share their story. I was never afraid of them, but I was like, oh, they're sad. They're lonely. They're lost. And sometimes if I listened, they would find peace and go away. Um, and so I was never really scared of spirits.
And why were they there?
I
Because you
think,
could see them?
yeah, I think like little psychic children are like ghost magnets, or
Oh,
people that have like strong mediumship ability are ghost magnets, especially children. So I don't, I think I would say every house I've ever lived in has been haunted because they come around, they come around like
mhm.
I'm sure they do with you as well.
So what do you say to people watching who are worried that their loved ones are ghosts who are hanging around and sad?
Well, I think sometimes they are. I mean, most of the time, really, 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 most of the time, people just transition just fine. They cross over, it's not a problem. And it goes, it's a process that takes a little time, but it's natural and it goes well. And sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, it's because there's unfinished business, because there's like the heaviness of trauma or attachment that hold the spirit there. And I
I
also know it's temporary. Like it's a process. For some people, it's a very short process. For other people, it's a longer process, but eventually those souls will pass too, will finish their transition and make it up to what I call soul world. I never really, when I was little, I never called it heaven. I always called it soul world. Just seemed a little more ecumenical that way. Um, and that they would go there. I never had any doubt that they get there. Sometimes it takes a little longer.
I didn't used to want to believe that. And I had no experience of that because every time I'd tune into people, well, almost every time they were there. But I wasn't tuning into people who were in some in between world at all. And you're having
Yeah.
the experience of it, and experience is a great teacher. Yet I feel that what you've just described really puts it into perspective in a way we can feel better about. And that is that when people say they're stuck, that seems like it's a permanent thing. And
Right.
I like to use the word confused or just a little
Yes.
lost.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah. And
people
sometimes
like
they
you
need a
see
little
them and help
time.
them.
Yeah. They need a little time to process what they've been through, especially with a sudden death or, you know, I don't know. There's sometimes circumstances where death happens where we need a minute. We need a minute to be like, what just happened? And that they will find their way. I mean, we don't see like caveman ghosts anymore. Like we don't see ghosts that are thousands of years old. That eventually people find a way to make it across. It's just takes sometimes a little time.
Yeah. And as she said,
Yeah.
it's actually quite uncommon, right?
Yes, it is quite uncommon.
Yeah.
It's quite
Oh,
uncommon.
all right. The reason you and I met was we were at a conference and you were at a book table with your books. And it was just a delight to meet you and find a kindred spirit. Everybody at the conference was, but somebody who really gets what it's like to connect across the veil so clearly. And it was beautiful because you handed me your book as a gift, Energy Healing for Empaths: How to
Mm,
Protect Yourself from Energy Vampires, Honor Your Boundaries, and Build Healthier Relationships. And with divine perfection, that's exactly what I needed at that conference, because a lot of people were uh, coming up to me and you could feel them wanting the energy that comes from higher consciousness. And that's where that term energy vampires comes from. I have to laugh at it, but it's actually a good picture of what it feels like. Sometimes you can feel when people are giving you their love and when
mhm.
they're sucking it out.
Right.
And so your book was timely. I went back to the hotel, I read it, and I came back armed, as you say, but not blocked the next day. Uh, let's talk about this book a little and we'll get back to the soul's path again. But this is very important. First of all, what's an empath?
So empaths are people who are so sensitive. Sometimes I call them like psychic sponges, that they just absorb the energy that's around them. And it's a little different from feeling like sympathy. We can look at somebody and be like, oh, they look so sad. I feel sympathy for them. And that's great. But an empath will actually absorb the energy of their sadness, their emotions, their thoughts, their physical energy, and feel that as if it's their feeling. So we're not just noticing that, oh, that person's sad. We're like, all of a sudden, we're like, oh my gosh, I don't know why so sad, I'm so crying, or I'm so exhausted, or suddenly I have a headache out of nowhere. Because empaths absorb that energy. And until we figure that out, it's really quite burdensome. It really is a burden. People feel like it's a curse. People don't, if that's a gift, then I throw it back. I don't want it. But when we learn how to manage our energy, which every empath really deeply needs to do, then all of a sudden we can understand that that is the gift of the healer. Like people who are empaths can, are often drawn to the healing arts or helping, to work in service for humanity in some way. And then we know, like, it's sort of like a built-in diagnostic, built-in MRI, X-ray machine for people who work in the healing arts to just, that amazing massage therapist who knows right where to put their hands, even though you don't say anything, or that friend who just really can listen, or maybe even understand how people who can't communicate are feeling, animals, elderly people, children, there's a knowingness of how somebody else is truly doing. It's so beautiful. That's the beautiful gift of it.
Yeah. But then there's the other side of it, that because we're so open, we pick up in places,
Yes.
in places where there are a lot of people. So why don't you share with us? You're clearly a gifted teacher. You explain things very clearly. Um, a few techniques for not taking on other people's energy, yet
Yeah,
remaining open.
absolutely. Yeah. And that's really an important point. We want to remain open. And I think it's about energetic hygiene. I always talk about energy hygiene,
Me
and
too.
yeah, it's about like learning some ways to stay grounded. So first of all, empaths tend to leave. We get overwhelmed with other people's energy. Like think about what happens to you halfway into Costco. You just
Turn around.
yeah, I'm just like, I could be like, wanting to like lie down on the floor and curl up in the fetal position, but definitely I'm like, I can't remember my name or where I parked my car. So we can become overwhelmed with other people's energy. So we need this and leave our bodies. So we need to have a way to stay grounded and be embodied in our body. So we need a grounding method. And I use like a breath and visualization technique that really anyone can use. Then, once you're in your body, you need to clear the energy that you picked up from other people, squeeze the sponge, right? And again, I use a breathing visualization technique. And then we need to sort of set up a more stronger layer of protection. So empaths tend to have like a spongy layer to the outside edge of our energy field is like our boundary layer, kind of like your skin is the boundary between the world and the inside of you. The um the outside edge of your energy field is also that has that similar boundary. And we want it to be semi-permeable, so we can't allow in, like you said, being open. We can't allow energy that's supportive to us to come through that, but we don't want to be like a full-on sponge, because then we just, you know, it's no fun when you're on an airplane. That's my least favorite. Or
Oh, yes. You
yeah.
feel everybody's fear, you know?
Yeah, and you literally the next person next to you is like practically sitting on your lap and there's nowhere to go. So airplanes, I'm like, I'm working this very fully when I'm on an airplane, but any place where there's people, we have to do that. So, and my strategy is to, if I need to sort of bail out for a minute and run into the restroom, to wash my hands, because there's a beautiful clearing technique you can do when you're washing your hands, just like, with this water I wash away all the energy I pick up that isn't mine. Nobody's gonna like freak out if you run to the restroom or wherever you are. And I breathe and I'm like, okay, I bring in a big beam of light, or I imagine that I'm standing under a waterfall of light to wash away the energy that doesn't belong to me. I really breathe into my tailbone, into my feet, like re-anchor myself into my body, and then visualize that energetic barrier is like an eggshell, a castle wall, this membrane of a cell and we program it to allow in energy that's supportive. Non-supportive energy stays on the other side, and nothing crosses without our boundaries. So we're the boss of the energy that comes in.
I love that. My guides showed me that we made water for ourselves when crossing the Atlantic on our sailboat with a reverse osmosis machine, and it had a semi-permeable membrane. And that's how
Yes.
it took in the seawater, but the membrane was just fine enough that the salt crystals couldn't get through. And what came through the other side was fresh, drinkable, pure water that allowed us to make all the water we needed when crossing the Atlantic. And so I love your analogy of I kind of made a start when you said semi-permeable, because that's what it is. Like a screen door lets the air in,
Yes.
but the bugs stay on the other side.
That's right. Exactly. That's it.
Yeah. And so we want the love to come in, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
don't feel cut off from everybody. That is
Right.
great. I'm going to do a complete pivot here, because every time you've raised your hand up, my guides have said, ask her about her tattoos. I have never asked anybody about their tattoos. I just want
Oh,
to know, because it's going to be important
I've
and
got,
meaningful,
I've got a
what your
lot.
tattoos, why they're
These
meaningful to you.
They're tattoos that I got with my children. So I have 3 kids, they're adults now, and I have matching tattoos with each of my children. I would say
Nice.
the family that tattoos together stays together. So it's like literally wearing my heart on my sleeve, and what's on my heart is my kids.
What
And
are the 3 symbols?
so there's one that's like a space planet. One is the Marine Corps symbol because my son is a Marine,
Ah,
and the other one is like a heart that hands holding a heart. That's my daughter.
nice. Well, my Susan just grabbed me and she said, see, I told you there was a connection, because my Susan
Yes,
was a Marine. I
I
didn't
know. I'm a
remember
Marine.
or know that
I'm
connection.
a Marine mom.
Ah, hoorah. Okay, now I know why I had to ask. Thank you, Susan. Yeah. All right, cool. So let's talk about your latest book.
Yeah, that's a fun one. Awakening your psychic ability, and I wrote it because I believe that everybody has psychic ability. Just it's an ability, just like musical ability or athletic ability. I think it's part of our human birthright. I think that there's a little bit of a myth going around that somehow, like, people are just born with this, and you don't have to work at it.
Ah,
And I know, and that's not true.
yeah,
That it requires, if you want to get proficient at it, you got to work it and practice and put some time into it. And I feel like that's great because that means anybody who has an interest in doing that can, whatever you have in terms of your psychic abilities, you can maximize your potential by studying. You got to know some things. So you have to have a knowledge set. Then you have to have practice. You need,
that's it.
you know,
Practicing your scales over and over.
yes,
Yeah.
that's right. So
Huh.
that's really what it's about. Is how
So-
it's kind of a combination of practice exercises and the knowledge that I think is helpful for people.
And what would you say are the top 2 practices that we work?
Well, one of my favorite things to invite people to do is to start what I call the psychic journal. And I'm so fond of this idea that I actually published a psychic journal called the Psychic Awakening Journal that will
Good.
do that for you. But annual journal will do because a lot of times our psychic and intuitive experiences are very ephemeral, they kind of like a dream. And I can have a psychic experience that's so powerful, life changing. If I don't write it down, I'm going to forget it. It's going to kind of pass through me. I'll forget about it. So when we write it down, write down your dreams. If you pull cards, write them down. When you see signs and omens, write them down. When you have a strong first impression when you meet somebody, write it down. And when we collect all these things in one place, first of all, you're going to be amazed how psychic you are already. But it just helps us focus our attention on it. And whatever we focus our attention on gets bigger. So that's kind of my number one thing. The next thing is to make time and space in your life to be quiet because we live in such noisy lives, and we're always watching TV or listening to something or have music going on. And our psychic hits, our intuitive impressions happen when we're in the alpha brainwave state, that sort of light, trancy state. And a really great exercise is write a question down in your psychic journal, or if you're not sure, like just say, tell me what I need to know right now. And then put yourself into an alpha activity. And that's sort of repetition, like washing the dishes, something like sort of mindless that puts your hands into repetitive folding the laundry, walking the dog, driving on a familiar pathway, in the shower. Psychics get their best hits in the shower,
Yes, I've
you
heard
know?
this. I've heard this.
And or have a bath or do whatever it is and sort of forget about what you wrote, but kind of hold your awareness really lightly around like how you feel, what you start thinking about. You might have like an aha moment, like, oh my
Oh, I
goodness,
just
like,
had one. May I share it?
yes.
Yeah, and it's that you guys might have seen me get snagged there. And it was from the right, so that Susan, yeah, thank you. That when I get a shower, I'm in mission mode. It's a means to an end. Get in, get out, Navy shower. Where my
Uh,
husband spends half an hour in the shower, maybe not that long. But you just showed me that I don't get insights in the shower because I'm just wash the hair, wash the body, we're out of here. I'm going to try slowing down and enjoying
Mhm.
that time in the shower. So I hope everybody else had an aha with that.
There you
Cool.
go. That was it right there. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
And just like that aha moment, that's such a great example of what the aha moment feels like, right? So when you have it, write it in your journal, because if you don't, we move on to the next thing and it's kind of gone, right? So make time in your life to be quiet. Meditation is amazing. I meditate every day. My hippie parents took me to transcendental meditation when I was 10.
Oh
So
my God.
I have
What a
like a
gift.
yeah, it was totally. I have a meditation practice, but even if you don't, you know, it's going to be really hard for your guides or for your own inner wisdom to reach you if you're just go 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 and with a lot of noise around you. So 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day of quiet walking, quiet driving, quiet in the shower, and use that time, set your intention. I'm going to get a message while I wash the dishes
Yeah,
and see
my
what
guys
happens.
just said, don't consider it a Navy shower anymore, which by the way, they're conserving water on a ship. So you just rinse off, soap up, rinse off quick. They're saying, call it a spirit shower.
Mhm.
Now it's an
Yeah,
opportunity.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. I call it the oracle, the bathtub oracle, because I love I love a bathtub. I love taking a tub as a great way to clear my energy field. And I'll do the same thing, write a question in my journal and then relax in the tub. I always keep my journal with me, the
You still
bathtub
do that.
oracle.
You still
I
use
do.
it. Huh,
Yes. Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I had to tell you, Lisa, I had, in all honesty, I had not heard of you until I met you at the conference. I now see it as a God thing. But I went from the conference. I love checking out metaphysical stores in new cities where I am, and I took an Uber ride to the nearest metaphysical store, and I walk in, and the book section in the back, there are 3 books by you. And I'm like, how do I not know this woman? It's just a setup. It was a total setup. Very, very impressive that your books are out there and they're very well written with good practical tools.
Thank
So
you.
yay, congratulations. You're
I'm
definitely
working on a new one now. It's really it's a challenge. I'm struggling with it a bit, but it's called Sacred Reparenting, Spiritual and Intuitive Healing for Your Inner Child. So
okay.
that'll be out sometime. It's about inner child work. And which is a lot of the work that I do with myself and my students. Um, so that'll be out sometime, I think in late 2026.
Awesome. Look forward to that. One of your other books is about psychic Reiki. Would you tell us about that? Many people are Reiki practitioners. We know what Reiki is, but you could go
Mm.
back to basics here for us and tell us then what psychic Reiki is.
Yeah, psychic Reiki is sort of my own blend of Reiki training and psychic development. So I've been teaching Reiki for 26 years now.
Okay.
And I was teaching Reiki, learned it was 1999, the year my daughter was born, that I learned it and started teaching. So I was teaching psychic development classes in Reiki hand in hand, like, and I noticed that my students would always do both, right? And so to me, it seemed like a perfect pairing because I always say yoga, Reiki, and meditation are the 3 gateways to open our psychic ability. You know,
Mm.
when you start meditating, pick up a yoga practice, you start doing Reiki, those things tend to open us even more. So people learn Reiki and their psychic ability opens, which in my mind is a beautiful thing because we can use our intuition, we can use our psychic senses to assist our clients even more, but it's not part of Reiki training and the traditional Reiki. So I was noticing students would be like, well, I started having all these psychic experiences and I told my Reiki teacher about it. And she just said to cut it out because it's not
Oh
Reiki.
no. Oh, no.
So they were just like, stop that. Like, I don't even want to hear about it. And I was like, well, that's unfortunate because to me, they go together so beautifully. So that's when I wrote the book. It came out in 2018. It was kind of radical. It was a little considered rad in the Reiki community. Like, how dare you, you know,
Mm.
um, do that because it's not canon and it isn't. But I do think it's an important pairing and a natural one. So I feel quite glad that it's helped people. feel better and know what to do. Because I know you know this too, that it can be really unsettling, disorienting to have your psychic ability open and to not know what to do, or to feel like it's wrong or bad, or to be afraid of it. And I really love helping people. I work a lot with people who are undergoing psychic openings, so that they have some, like, a mentor, some help. And I didn't have that. I mean, I was born in the 60s. I was going through this in the 70s and 80s, and there was no mentor. There was no books on the library. There was no psychics on TV. There's no beautiful podcasts, like this. So I was on my own, and it was hard. It was
Mm.
hard to kind of go against I always knew I had to be quiet about it. I always knew, like, I could end up in a, mental hospital, because that's where they put people who, saw angels and talked to dead Uncle Fred. So, like, I was like, "Shh," I'm like, "No, I'm just gonna try to pretend to be normal in public here, right?" And
Yeah.
it was quite harrowing at times, and trying to understand what I was experiencing while I was trying to pretend to be normal in public, was not easy. And if I can help other people go through that more gracefully than I did, that's really what I'm here for.
Oh, you're doing it very well through your books, your podcasts, your teaching. The Psychic Reiki, the book, is it mostly about people who want to use that for others or for themselves or a combination?
It's a combination. So Reiki 1 is there's so much self-healing in Reiki 1. When we learn Reiki 1, we're focusing on self-healing, and working on yourself, your family, your friends, your pets. And in Reiki 1, I'm working a lot with this energetic hygiene. Like, how do we handle our empathic nature, our sensitive nature when we're doing Reiki on other people? In Reiki 2, I work a lot with, well, spirit guides, because they say we have Reiki guides who come in to assist us, which we totally do. And how do we then communicate directly with them? Reiki is um, it's very easy to let our intuition guide us, and that's sort of what we should be doing with Reiki, I think. So how do we do that? What do we do? How do we ethically, so I talk a lot about ethics too in this book. How are we ethically responsible for conveying our psychic information to other people? And I'm a big, believer in asking permission before we share our psychic impressions with people, not doing what I call the psychic hit and run, you know,
Yeah.
where you kind of blurt it out without somebody's permission. And that can be, we don't always know what happens then. It's not always welcome. So to really be thoughtful and mindful about how what we say impacts other people, and what our ethical responsibilities around that. I think that comes from my training as a therapist. So, like, I started working as a psychic when I was 19, but I quickly learned I just didn't have enough skill to really help people. So I went back to school and became a therapist.
Oh,
And
awesome.
yeah, I did that combination for together for a long, long, long time, and then added Reiki into the mix. So I sort of fall back on that training as sort of my backbone for how to care for people who are, you know, struggling. I always say nobody comes to my office because they're having a good day. And we need we need to know how to handle people who are, I'm sure it's the same for you, dealing with people that are in grief, you know, all the time. So my training as a therapist really helped me with that.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
clearly you are fulfilling your soul's mission. The spirit wanted to make sure you couldn't deny it, couldn't miss it. They keep putting it literally in your face, and you're putting all those gifts to use. Let's go back to talking about soul planning and divining one's soul purpose.
Mm.
Just take this where you want to take it.
I think people get it. You're totally right, Suzanne. It is like the number one question that people ask me. We think it's going to be about relationships or whatever, other things, but it's that, what am I here for? Seems to be the big thing. And I think that people get confused about this and think it's a job. Like, somehow it has to do with our vocation. And I really feel like it has to do with our state of being. It's like who we are at the essential level, And it's about, like, maybe your life purpose is about nurturing, or about, you know, loving people, or about, you know, guiding people, or about being a leader, being creative. There's sort of these broader things. I always say you could take me out of my office and put me in McDonald's. flipping burgers, and I'm still going to put my hands on people and do Reiki and talk to their dead grannies because I just can't help it. It's like it's just it's who I am. It's not what I do, it's who I am. And that, I think our purpose is that it's who are we? And there's so many ways that we can, you can be working in the Navy, you could be working in some corporation and totally fulfill your life purpose. Maybe your job is to support people, nurture people, comfort people, lead people, organize people, solve problems, and we can
Love
do
that.
it anywhere. Like, and I think we are more comfortable when we're in a job that's more aligned with the nature of who we are, you know? Um,
You just said
but
it right there. So we think purpose is going to be well defined, but what you just said, it's what is my nature? And we feel that already. And then it becomes a
yes,
matter of honoring it.
yes. And expressing it in the world in some way. you know so maybe your nature is to be super creative, but you have to have a day job. That's fine. Can you be creative in your day job? Can you do other things? Like, how is this creativity going to flow through you in everything that you do, in every aspect of your life? Or if you are, and this is one that I see that's so beautiful and so sadly underrated, but maybe your purpose is to be love, to just love everyone, to give love. And people who have that, I think it's the most beautiful gift. And people who have it are like, think it's unimportant. They're like,
Oh,
that whole thing.
that is the underlying purpose for all of us. But I'm thinking of my two dogs, Nellie and Rusty. I was given a shirt by my friend Karen Crawford, be like Nellie, because her purpose is to be loved. She runs up to people and they just melt. Whereas
Mhm.
Rusty's like, yeah. So even though we love him through his presence, yeah, people are like that too. And
Yes.
that's really a wonderful point you made.
Yeah. And it's such a special, beautiful, high calling. And a lot of times the people who have it are like, feel shame about it, or they're like, that old thing. They're like, that's not valuable. Like, that's not paying the bills. It's not like, you know, it's sad. It's sad, but I think when you have that, you can do that anywhere. You can, no matter what. Maybe you're drawn more towards, helping professions. And that's a great place to put that. But literally, I don't think you could do that. You smile at the person behind you at the checkout counter, and just walking into the room, you're bringing that love with you, anchoring the frequency of love onto the planet. What better job is there? I mean, what better life purpose is there than that? It's so amazing.
What did you just write down?
Oh, nothing. No, I'm just,
It looks like you
yeah.
got a hit, something for another book.
I just fiddling with my pen. Sometimes I do write things down, but I was just fiddling there.
But you just hit on something that is really profound. Instead of focusing on my purpose, like it's going to be, I am supposed to be a teacher, I'm supposed to change the world with this job, this
Mm.
task. I'd like everybody listening or watching right now to say, what is my truest nature? When do I feel most aligned? And how would you define aligned, Lisa?
I think when we're aligned, there's sort of like a congruence, like an energetic resonance that goes through all the levels of us. So alignment is like your physical self, emotional self, mental self, spiritual self are harmonized, you know, with each other. Like they're all in harmony, they're all resonating. There's coherence, there's sort of energetic coherence here.
Yeah.
Coherence is a really big, when we're aligned, we're coherent.
Yeah.
And when we're not, if you're a person who's, you know, vibe is love, then working for an arms dealer or a weapons company is maybe not in alignment for you, or that kind of, not that some people don't have to do that, I guess, but it's not gonna, there are people who that's an alignment for them. The
Yep.
warriors of the world, the
Yep.
protectors of the world, that's going to be more in alignment.
Yep.
So we have to find things where there's sort of harmony and coherence between what we're doing, the people that we're around. If your thing is to be of love, maybe you're working with elders, children, women. Maybe you want to be a kindergarten teacher, or you want to work in a nursing home, or you want to do healing work. Or there's more alignment in, because there's a coherence between the vibration of love and serving.
I
And the
love
service
that
of love.
you're now allowing people to realize that they may already be living on purpose. They may feel like, oh, this job is not good for me because it's not my purpose, but you can align your soul's
Yeah,
purpose with your job or
that's
not.
right. Or not.
Yeah.
And you can be, I really think you can be in any job and and bring that vibe in there. And I see a lot of really, really, really powerful healers and light workers who are in corporate world right now. And sometimes they feel like they need to quit. And I often say, maybe not, because what needs more light now than the corporate world? And, corporations have so much power. And, so many of them are wanting to pivot, wanting to wake up, to change, to be more enlightened, to have bring more light to the planet. And I think lots of people are placed in these maybe more difficult environments to bring their gift to that heart. It's like being a candle in a dark place, being a light in a dark place. So that might be your mission, and it might seem like, well, I should quit my job and open a yoga studio and a healing center. And if that's your mission, that's awesome. But we need those too. And maybe it's to bring your beautiful light, your love to corporate world, or to, I don't know, Starbucks, or wherever you're, to the retail world,
I
wherever
can
you're
hear the
working.
angels singing from the people that are listening to this and saying, oh my God, I don't have to change my day job.
Yeah,
This
I
is
don't think you
great.
do. Unless you hate it, unless you really feel, called to do that, or there's this clear, need for you to do that. But I don't think we all need to open healing centers or become healers to fulfill our purpose.
Rewind right there and listen to that line again, everybody. That was true wisdom. Awesome. So Lisa, what part of your work haven't we covered that would really fill out this time together beautifully?
I would just say, like, this is such a beautiful time to dive into your spiritual gifts, and your callings, or your desire to become more psychic, more intuitive. There's such an opportunity to do that. So I think it's this shift in human consciousness that we're in right now, the shift in evolution that I see we're all going through. Everybody's upgrading. Everybody has a chance to reach their highest spiritual potential, I think, in this lifetime. Like, as far as we can get in this lifetime, now is the time to do that. So I think if you're feeling the call, then put some, follow your intuition and do some spiritual study, do some spiritual seeking. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you're already on that path. And we can have great gains. We can make great strides during this time. I think that's why we're here on the planet. Why so many people have incarnated onto the planet right now is to ride the wave of this ascension.
Yes.
And this uplifting of our consciousness as humans. Thank goodness, right? And
Yes.
then if the more of us that sort of wake up and feel that alignment and bring in more light onto the planet, I feel like we can sort of like turning the Titanic. Like, let's all wake up and lighten up, and we can change the course, set the course of human evolution onto a much more positive path, which I honestly believe is happening and will continue to happen.
And I align with that message. We're all experiencing that, bringing in more light, more candles into the dark room. So yay.
Yeah.
Well, Lisa, I love what you've shared today. I want to get your journal and just check it out and see how that, how you've organized that. But everybody check out Lisa's other books. She has several, lisacampion.com. And your classes must surely be wonderful if you teach like you talked here. When you were saying the same thing, that's very affirming that this is what people need to hear, and it will really help in your day-to-day life doing the work. So thank you so much for being a guest, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We love the energy you bring to these sessions. So go out and have a great week. Bye-bye.